Hi guys, it's Pippa here. Going to be planting in my King Edward seed potatoes here. These are actually bought kind of like properly, but if you've not been able to get out to the shops, you can try and chit these, which is what you call these sprouty things, just from some sort of potatoes that you've got mouldering away in your cupboard at home. But the problem with doing that is that they're not guaranteed to be like disease free, and so they might go a bit not so great when you're growing them, but it's worth a go. So these are sprouted, chitted, and I'm going to do them in a mixture of different things like containers. But I was trying to think of the people that don't have like containers and not getting out, and what you can grow them in. So this is an old refuse sack that was quite holey, but I have actually just poked in some more drainage holes. Sorry, it's got really bright in here, so I don't know. We just want the potatoes not to become waterlogged in our fantastic summer to come. So I'm hoping that's enough. If not, if I don't feel like it's enough, then probably, it's got some holes in as we go along, I'll probably just stab some holes in as we go along. But I think these are quite porous anyway. What I'm also going to do, as you can see the wind is getting up, I'm just going to put this is a bit of old concrete I found, just like get some stones or like the odd brick just to give some weight in, because obviously we're growing it in the UK. Oh look, and that is working, and just to stop everything from being blown around your garden. Now obviously what we need to do is put some soil in, and that will give the bag some weight as well. I'm going to be doing some in some as well as some containers, like an Asda recyclable shopping bag as well, not the like little plastic ones, but the plastic ones more like this. So all we're going to do now is I'm going to put a mixture of some mud from the garden and some compost in, just to, because obviously everything's in shutdown now. I've got some compost. If you don't have compost, just use some mud. I'm just going to get some mud and a little bit of compost, and I'm going to put it into about 5 inches. I'll see you in a bit. Right, so I filled up my bag to about 5-6 inches deep of just mud. I was going to top it up with compost, but it's just going to cost a fortune. Not that my compost is expensive, it's just that, well, mud is free as far as I'm concerned. The midget has just got my tape measure. Anyway, so that's the bag done. So like I said, it's just going to be mud only. And over here, I'm going to have to get that tape measure in a minute. And over here are our chitted King Edward potatoes. Now you can see this sprouty thing, that's what they call it when they're chitted. It just means sprouted. So they look quite dried out. So if you've got stuff in your cupboard like this at home, give it a go. That's what I say. Like I said, you might have diseases and stuff, and the yield might not be so great, as far as I'm aware, but it's better than nothing, so you may as well give it a go. Can you see her? I'm gonna go have to get my tape measure. So yeah, any side shoot. So as well, this sprouted thing, that's actually going to form the leaves of the plant. So it's not the root. So they get planted like this way up. Okay. Any side sprouts that you have, say like you had like a sprout growing here, and you've got the main ones. If it was any longer, you just like take it off. You want all of the plant's energy going up to these bits. Now the King Edwards, that dog. The King Edwards are their main crop, so they're like your baking potatoes and your roasting potatoes. So you can tell that they obviously that's the kind of size that you're going to end up with. They're quite leafy, and the spacing needs to be a little bit further apart. They're supposed to be about 15 inches, which is about, I think, 30-40 centimeters apart. So I've worked out that I can get 2 in here if I plant them to the edge. So again, we're just wanting the leaves as it gets bigger, because they're going to be growing like out of the bag. We just want the air to circulate around the leaves, just to prevent any disease. So I'm just going to pop these in, and then I'll cover them up. So like literally, I may as well show you how I'm going to attempt to do it. So I'm just going to, I hope, I need it to have a little bit of soil at the bottom. Might have to top it up with a bit more mud if I feel like I can't. I should actually I was going to say a spatula. I should actually have something to put that in. So just sticking it in there. It's got a little bit of mud covering it, and that's it. That's how you plant a potato. So we're covering the shoots in, like, I think about like maybe 2 weeks. You'll start to see little leaves coming up, and as we go along, all we do is that we cover the sprouts and the leaves, and it just it's called earthing up. So obviously you're piling the earth up over the potato. And I think, as I said, I'm not an actual gardener. I think that just encourages the plant to grow taller and taller, and eventually it will be growing right out of here. So, which is why I'm thinking it's going to be a lot cheaper just to use mud. So that one's on that side. I'm going to plant the other one all the way over here. So we should eventually have like loads of leaves coming out. I don't really want to do any more than that because I'd be a little bit concerned. I mean, in theory, I guess I could get one maybe over that side and maybe over that side. Should we try that? Don't know if that's too close together. Oh, sod it. We're gonna excuse my language. I'm gonna put one over here. So we're gonna try like four like, if you imagine, always to food, if you imagine like a pizza, we're going to kind of like quarter this bag up. So I'm going to put one, so northeast, southwest is how I'm going to do it, just thinking of the space in between the plants. So we're going to try like 4 to 1 refuse sack. You can also, if you've got stuff lying around your garden, like I clearly have, if you've got like a builder's sack, you can use that and you could get loads more potatoes in there, obviously. Just try anything that you've got lying around your garden or your yard. Or if you see like an escape and you think, I could use that. There's no harm, there's no shame. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to do one there, one there, one there, and one there. Same thing, make a hole, bury it, basically, like you were trying to kill it, bury it. And that's it. And then I think this mud is wet enough that I'm not going to actually put any water on it. But obviously if you had like really dry, like proper composty stuff, like this stuff is, I'm on a clay soil, so you can see how moist it is. As it grows, then I'll start to water it. I don't want it to dry out. And that's it for now. I'll do a couple more, still using mud, because I realised how much mud these need, in some containers, and just it's exactly the same thing. Okay, see you in a bit. To plant 2 of these in my Asda carrier bag. I don't know if you can see that. Like basically there's nothing in the shops right now. So we may as well make some use of these shopping bags. I've never done this before, I might add. I normally grow them in containers, but I just thought, like, for those of us who can't get out to shops and things, then it's worth a go. So just like if you've got a bag of salad potatoes at home, just try it. As I said in previously, it's tricky if you're using stuff that from like a bag that you're meant to eat, because they're not necessarily guaranteed to be disease free or give you that much of a yield like these sort of pre-prepared things. But give it a go. There's no harm in trying, and it'll give you something to do. So I've put in about like 4 holes, and I've tried to make sure that the holes are pointing outwards. I can see at least 2 holes there. It's absolutely freezing, so if everything blows away, I apologise. I'm just going to use mud again, not going to use my most precious compost. The mud is damp-ish because it's actually been trying to snow today, and it's got enough moisture in. We're not going to be watering these in because remember, we don't want these little things to go to mush. Actually, no, there'll be enough moisture in the mud. We'll only water them sort of like a bit later on as the mud starts to like properly dry out. Okay, we're off. I'm going to go and get my mud. Alright, so I've got my mud, got about 6 inches in here. I've put one down there, and I'm just about to put one on the other side, just to give them room for the leaves to breathe. I'm going to leave them like that. If you've got any like side shoots, like too many side shoots, just rub them off with your thumb, and it just goes in. Just like so. Cover it over. That's it. That's done. What you need to do is what is a good idea to do is to write some information down. So you're going to write down, oops, can't see an absolute thing through the screen. You're going to write down what they are, the variety, and the date that you planted them in. If you don't have like one of these sticks, I managed to get this whole bag full from Poundland for £1. I thought it was really, really good value. Anyway, but nobody's going out now. So if you don't have like a lolly stick or anything like this, it's just as good to write that information on your bag. Don't write it on the inside because it's going to be filled with mud at some point, or compost if you've got some. And just write it on the outside, just so you know, just so you remember when you actually planted them in. And that's it. Just put it somewhere where it's going to get some daylight, some sun. We're not going to water them in because right now it'll probably you're just going to turn it to mush, basically. So you can tend to keep these sort of like a little bit moist, but certainly not waterlogged. So yeah, you don't need to water them so much really. So we'll just take it as it comes. If we start to get like some really hot weather, we'll start thinking about watering them. But there's certainly, you don't need to like go and water it in. Just leave it for now. Like I said, I'm not an expert by any means. So if this fails, it's not my fault. I've never done it in a carrier bag before. I've always used like containers. But I just thought nobody's getting out or anything, and nobody's got any cash, so let's try and use what we've got to hand. Like I said, just if you've got some potatoes, just give it a go. I take no responsibility for any of this, but it might be some fun, and if it works, you kind of love me when you're sat there eating your salad potatoes. So that's what these first earlies are. I'm just going to stick that in there, and then I'll have to move it. I might end up writing it on the bag myself, actually. So the first earlies are basically like your first lot of potatoes you get in. Then you get your second earlies, which come a few weeks after your first earlies, and then you get your main crop, which come later on in the season again. I'm actually shivering now. I'm going to carry on doing this. I'm going to do one in a little pot, if I can find a little one container just for that one on its own. And it's exactly the same. Right, see you in a bit. Right, so I've managed to find this pot. As you can see, it's got some drainage in. It's not that big, and I'm only going to be planting one little thing in. And oi! See what I'm working with? Leave it. Going to just be planting one little potato in this. This is so not yours, dog. So I'm going to fill it with mud. With the carrier bag one that I just did, actually, I did put a little stone in, but actually I don't think you need to, because when the mud's in there, it's pretty heavy. We'd have to have a monsoon for them to blow away, and I think this will be the same, so I don't really need to put anything in it other than mud, so I'm just going to do that now. Right, so I've got my container. I've filled a bit of the base, enough to cover this teeny tiny potato. We'll try and find some sprouts. There's not many. I don't know why these haven't sprouted. There's a couple. There's one there. Right, so I'm just going to bury it all the way in, if I can. Oh, I don't want to go in now. Yeah, that'll do. That will do. It's just about covered. Don't forget, we're trying to we'll be covering it up as we go, so our mud level is going to go up to here. So obviously you're not going to try and cram any more potatoes in there, any more seed potatoes in there, that's way too much. So one is enough. It did have a big hole, well, it still has a big hole in it, but not much mud seems to be coming out, so I'm quite happy. If you had a pot that didn't have any holes in, if you don't have a drill, just get a screwdriver. That's what I normally do, and just make holes in, and just make sure that the little bits of plastic are draining bottom side out when you use a screwdriver. Otherwise, you just get loads of water staining. So again, not gonna water this in. There's enough moisture in there. It can get going. Just needs a label and can sit with its brothers and sisters in the carrier bag and go, hey, look at me, really no mates. Right, see you in a bit. Right, so this is the size of the container that I normally use. I don't know if River can provide some kind of size comparison, but it is pretty big. So compared to my incinerator thing, whatever they're called, you can see it's a decent size. But the problem with these, I've obviously made some holes in right at the bottom down there, but actually there was still quite a lot of water sitting down in there. So what I'm going to do is going to use my screwdriver and scissors and make some more drainage holes in here, because otherwise everything's just going to rot basically, and I'm going to be not assisted by my dog. So yeah, I'm just going to do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so now I've put some holes in here. I've made the existing holes that I'd made earlier. I made those a bit bigger. All I do, and it's not going to be easy to show you one-handed, if you've got a drill, this is a whole lot easier and safer, I imagine, and I am wearing gloves. But what I do is, I just find a hole, I just find a place and I pierce it. Let's try and do it, oops, with this. And then I pierce it to just get something going. And then what I do is I then use both blades, like the whole of the thing. You see how that works? Oh, that works brilliantly. And I just use that to make it bigger and bigger. Then, when you've got like enough drainage in, then, whoops, we'll just turn it over and just make sure, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Oops. Hold on a sec. This way. And then you can just use those scissors, if they're still working, of course. I bear no responsibility for your equipment. And then just use that to take off the plastic, because what's going to happen if you don't take off all this, or not all of it, or don't get rid of the majority of this plastic, all it's going to do is when the mud goes in, the mud and the plastic are going to block up your homemade drainage holes. So you just try and get off as much as you can, and that one's pretty much, oops, don't you see, I can't see what I'm doing. That one's pretty much okay. And now it's just the same thing with the, with the mud. Fill it up to about 6 inches and put your potatoes in, so I will do that. Right, so I've got about 5-6 inches of mud in here. I'm going to risk doing 3 in here because I'm going to run out of pots, so we'll just see what happens. These are decent shoot on there. Just going to rub off that little one if I can. Yeah, and then I'm just going to bury it. I'm just going to show you these. Oops, oh, that fell off. You can see how sometimes they have like side shoots on them. Just rub them off. You want the pointy bit, sorry, not the pointy bit, you want the sprouty bit pointing upwards. As I said before, that's the bit that is going to be where the leaves grow from. So this tuber, if you think of that as the root, that's gonna store up, or that is the little storage pod for the leaves, I think. Again, not a gardener, folks, but I think that's the idea. Yeah, so just rub off any sprouty bits, and I'm going to put one there and one kind of about here, sort of have like a, try and third it up. It's supposed to be, excuse me, about, oh, I'm going to cough. It's supposed to be, I think, about 30 centimetres, so may not quite have that here, but hey. this is what we're doing anyway. So yeah, I'm just going to put them in. Shall I show you? I think you've pretty much got the idea of it now. So it's sprouted bit up. Not one really for using a trowel. Where hands will do. I do have one somewhere, but I'm so used to just digging about in the soil and stuff, I don't even think about it anymore. Yeah, and we're using mud, so we might get a few more weeds. Well, we definitely get a few more weeds than we would if we were just using it straight from a compost bag. But again, mud free. And there you go. I'm just going to put in my label again. So this was my they're my second earlies, and it's American Piper, which are good for salads and boiling. And it's just got the date that I put it on, and it's just a reminder basically, because you think, oh yeah, I remember when I planted these, but you never do. I'll just cover that bit over it. And that's it. So we've done. I'll just show you. We have done in a refuse sack. That was the main crop, which are much leafier. I've got King of Edwards, and apparently they're not so a great cropper, but hey, it's better than nothing, and it saves me going to the shops. And so that was in a refuse bag, but again, you can use a builder's bag. You can even use like a bin, or I've got a bucket up here waiting for something to go in. Just anything, any container is fine. We've got like one of those old like plastic storage bins, or even an old incinerator, whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called. I've got one that I burn stuff on. That'd be great just as well. So just anything you've got lying around in your garden or your yard. Clearly I have loads lying around everywhere. And then we've got potatoes in a Asda carrier bag, and if this is shaking, if this camera's shaking, it's because I'm absolutely frozen. So I'm going in a minute. So yeah, and again, we had one on that side and one on that side, and we've got one in a pot on its own, and I'm guarding it from my little dog who you can hear barking, because I know she loves stuff like this and she loves digging. So I'm just gonna have that as a little guard over there. That's very attractive. And then this one is a few more, again in a container, but this is more of the size that I normally grow stuff in. I've never grown stuff. I have grown them in like a sackish thing before, but never quite in a refuse sack, definitely not in a carrier bag. So we're just gonna see. I'm not promising anything, but again, if you've got a few mouldy old potatoes at home, it's worth a go. But this is more of the size that I normally plant them in, and I've never had any problems. Haven't done it for a good few years, but never had any problems in the past. And it's such a nice feeling when actually you start to dig stuff up. It's like, oh my goodness, it's really good. Anyway, have fun with it, folks, and I'll post something else soon on something like maybe some garlic. That's pretty straightforward. Let's hope we can't go wrong with that. And just some other things as we go along, but again, like, just start saving like yogurt pots, and and just kind of think, what could I use things in? We can't get to the shops right now, so there's no point out going and buying lots of things when nobody's got any cash. If you've got the cash, yeah, go out, buy it online, but it'll take you a while. The best thing is to try to do is like recycle stuff. I generally don't throw stuff away, as you'll see in some of my videos later on. I'm not one. I always think, I've got a bit of metal there, or I've got this, use it for later, and generally I do. Might take me a few years to use it, but I do. Anyway, that's it. I'll stop rambling. Okay, have fun.